Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking about the many benefits of kombucha. And a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about kombucha. They want to know if it's good for them. They want to know if it's alcoholic. And kombucha is been getting a lot of press. It's just growing like crazy. It's become a $3.5 million industry, and they're expecting it to reach $11.4 billion by 2030. And it's growing like wildfire, and it's causing quite a stir in the beverage business because it's hard to get a new beverage like that into the system. So many things are being controlled, with the big beverage companies. But kombucha its popularity has grown strictly by word of mouth, and it's growing at an incredible rate. And it's because it's so good for you. Even Pepsi-Cola is jumping on the bandwagon and thinking about making kombucha because it's so popular, which is scary to me. But people are looking for healthy alternatives to pop. And I just think that pop can be one of the most harmful things you can drink, even if it's diet, which could almost be worse than regular pop. The high fructose corn syrup is not good for you. And it can mess with your thyroid. It can do all kinds of different things. And then the diet sodas, oh gosh, they have properties in like the Splenda that is in some of them. It can disrupt your gut bacteria. It can kill a lot of the gut bacteria. So it's very, very important that you pay attention to what you're drinking. And as people look for healthy alternatives, kombucha is a great place. We also have another product called kefir soda, which is absolutely fabulous. Has a lot of the properties that kombucha does, but also has some different ones. But is another great alternative. We just made a kefir soda starter to make it really easy for you. So if you want to check it out at culturedfoodlife.com. Click on the kefir soda and the products. That's a great one too. But kombucha is fabulous. And this is mostly about kombucha today. I love it. It has all kinds of different properties in it that are so unique to it. And there's there's controversial articles that circulate around. And when I start getting emails about people who don't know what to believe, I always shoot straight with you. I don't write sensational blogs to drive people to my website. I just don't do that. And the truth of the matter is nobody really knows what's best for you but you. And that includes me. You are the wisest person concerning your own diet, and what foods and drinks you consume, you should decide, and not me or anybody else. We kind of lost our way in this. We're not really trusting ourselves or looking for our own guidance, which I think is really important. And honestly, I don't even know how we decide what we can eat anymore because they demonize everything, for goodness sakes. They demonize all different types of foods. And then years later, they're fine. And, it seems to be getting worse and worse. So I'm going to give you my personal opinion about kombucha, and I've had years of experience, decades of experience with it, but I want you to encourage to test it out on yourself and make your own decision because kombucha is a powerful drink that will detoxify you and give you a lot of health benefits. And one of my favorite quotes is by Marcus Tullius Ciro, who says, "Nobody can give you wiser advice than yourself." So do your own research, do your own, your body's your best teacher ever. It'll tell you so many things. And in the beginning, when I started drinking kombucha, it was really powerfully detoxifying me. And I stopped drinking it after I've been drinking it for about 3 months. And this is the very beginning. And then I stopped drinking it because I read an article online. This is a couple decades ago. And somebody was supposedly who is in the know, who didn't sell kombucha, decided that it was bad for you. And so she wrote this article about it. And here's the deal with kombucha. When you get a SCOBY and some starter tea and make your own kombucha, you're set. If you take care of that, you don't have to buy it again. So there's not a lot of money in selling SCOBYs, but there's a lot of money selling the bacterias that are in the SCOBYs. And I think that's why this person she doesn't like live cultures. So, which is crazy because they're sustainable and they're good for you. And if you buy kefir grains, if you take care of them, they'll last you forever. And they'll even last through your children's children if you take care of them. Same with kombucha. I love that about it, that you don't have to keep buying it all the time, or buy a SCOBY all the time, because once you get one, you're good if you take care of it. So after I stopped drinking it for, I can't remember, it was 3 months, I think I stopped drinking it. And in that time, I had been drinking it for a while. And I started feeling tired and sluggish all the time, especially in the late afternoons. I didn't have as much energy overall, and my hormones got really out of whack. I remember that. So I started drinking it again. And the other reason I started drinking again was because I had joint pain that came back, because my joint pain went away, because it's very good for your joints. And so I started drinking it again, and all those symptoms went away, every one of them. And I knew that the kombucha was helping me. I knew that it was, because it was in the very early days when nobody really knew that much. And I saw it help my family so much, especially when people felt tired, run down, or they had a sore throat, or they were starting to get sick. I always noticed that kombucha helped them. It would kind of clear off that gunk on the back of your throat. And it had a very powerful way of detoxifying. It had a ton of B vitamins in it. And it really helped me balance my hormones. Like, I remember it was right around that time where I was kind of going through perimenopause or whatever. And it would really help me a lot. And because it helps detoxify you, because, when you start to go through hormone changes, your body has an overload of them in your system. So it's trying to get rid of them, but it's so overwhelmed, it has a hard time doing that. And that kombucha is very helpful for that. So I couldn't ignore the symptoms that had come back. And I just, after doing experiments on my own body and my own family, I found kombucha be so many benefits to me that I decided that I wasn't going to listen to her because it was working for me and everybody else. So one big question I get is kombucha alcoholic? Those who are saying that kombucha is alcoholic don't understand the fermentation process nor the science behind kombucha. This is really interesting, but I've had several people in my forum who've tested their alcohol levels with a breathalyzer, came up with 0 alcohol, and many others found the same results. And one guy drank a gallon of kombucha in a sitting, and he too found that nothing registered on the breathalyzer. But then, oh my goodness, he was detoxing like crazy. So he wasn't very healthy to begin with. So this was not a good experiment for him. And I don't recommend this, especially if you haven't had it before. You'll be in the bathroom, believe me. But I tell you, it really is a powerful drink that let me explain to you my take on all this. So kombucha, like any other fermented food, can have small amounts of alcohol when you second ferment it with fruit juice. Since fermentation is required to make kombucha, the drink generally includes trace amounts of alcohol, but so do things like yogurt and other foods. Even orange juice has alcohol in it. About 2 ounces of orange juice is usually used to ferment kombucha or some kind of juice, not orange juice, but juice. And while it ferments, it creates a little bit of alcohol because it's eating up all the sugars and creating little bits of alcohol with it. And as it continues to ferment, it will give long enough, the fermentation cycle turns to vinegar. So kombucha will turn to vinegar if you leave it long enough. So the sugars in kombucha, and this also goes for the new kefir soda product we have, are reduced by 85% in about 4 days. It just zaps the sugar out of it. And the longer it ferments, the less you have. Now, it does create a little bit of the alcohol, but it can be confused with the different types of naturally occurring sediments. They're mistaking that for ethanol sometimes because it's got organic acids and it gets this sediment in the bottom. And it's really hard for tests to distinguish that. So they both reduce the sugars, both kombucha and kefir soda. They're both reducing those sugars. Those microbes are eating the sugar. So the sugar is not for you. It's for the bacteria and the good yeast that are in these drinks. And those microbes eat that sugar, and then they turn it into a bubbly fruit-flavored drink that's full of vitamins and probiotics. So, okay, let me explain more about this. So, confusing organic acids and naturally occurring sediment for ethanol. The feds tried to take kombucha off the shelf years ago. I can't remember. It was quite a while ago. And U.S. Representative Jerry Post wrote a letter to John Manafred, head of the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, asking the agency to back off. And this representative argued that bottles of kombucha consistently tested below the 0.5% mark of alcohol when cold. And then they exceeded this limit when they would take them out of the refrigerator and store them at room temperature. So here's what he said. 8 spoiled kombuchas are roughly the equivalent of 1 beer. And that means you have to leave them out and let them keep fermenting. But that doesn't mean we should regulate it like we do alcohol. It makes absolutely no sense, Jared Paulus said. The current testing method, he also said, it confuses those organic acids and the sediment for ethanol, which increases the reading of the alcohol content to a higher percentage than is actually contained in the product, Paulus said. And that's true because there's a lot of sediment and it doesn't really know what that is. So, and, people have been drinking this for a long time and it does really make a huge difference. It does turn to vinegar. It makes a big difference in the amount of B vitamins they get and probiotics they get. Now, the calories in kombucha can vary greatly. Since it can be fermented based on taste and everybody can ferment it for different time periods, but much of the sugar gets eaten out by the bacteria when you ferment it, which is about 85%. So it depends on several variable factors. The length of time you let your kombucha ferment, the strength and the amount of your starter culture. So if you have like a weak starter, and let's say it's not going to ferment as fast. But let's say you double the amount of starter culture you have in your kombucha, it's going to ferment twice as fast and eat the sugars twice as fast. And the room temperature is one of the most important things. The longer you ferment, the stronger your starter culture is going to be and the less sugar you're going to have. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's better to ferment longer because then you start to lose the probiotics because they run out of food. So if you add more starter culture and your room temperature is hotter, it's going to cause the bacteria to eat up those sugars faster. And that's why all cultured foods have that sour taste because the sugars are gone. And that's why cultured foods, generally, it just varies from home to home. Like, for instance, my home has a lot more bacteria than most people's because I've been doing this for so long. So, okay, for instance, the calorie conversion, we don't have it precisely, but it's roughly around 3 to 4 carbs and even less for the plain versions of kombucha. And then if you second ferment it with fruit juice, you're probably going to get about 7 to 8 carbs. And that just depends. The more tart tasting, the less sugar you will have. So and remember, this sugar is not for you, it's for the microbes. And it does keep slowly fermenting in the fridge. So it does get less and less and less. That's why it tastes so tart. And you don't want to let it go to vinegar though, because then when you second ferment it, it never gets bubbly because there's no sugar for the good yeast to eat to make that wonderful Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a probiotic yeast. So you don't want to let it get overly vinegary tasting because then you're going to lose some of the vitamins and minerals, but a lot of the probiotics. So it's best when it tastes tart, but not vinegary. That's what you're going for. And, you want to make sure that the good yeast have some food to eat so they'll make it bubbly. Otherwise, your kombucha is going to be flat. So kombucha is a very, very powerful probiotic in it. It is called Saccharomyces boulardii, which I just said. And we don't only need good bacteria, but we need good yeast to keep us in balance. And S. boulardii is unrelated to the yeast Candida and other Candida species. It's not the same thing. It's one of the most researched probiotics, and it's the #1 probiotic used in hospitals worldwide. So here's how S. boulardii works. S. boulardii is not present in the natural gut. It's not there. It's a transient yeast that passes through the intestines after ingestion, which is what makes kombucha so unique. So if you take this every day, it achieves a steady stream in the colon within 3 days of drinking it. And then it's cleared from the stools in 2 to 5 days after that. It does not attach to the mucosal cell lining, but it works its magic on you as it moves through the gastrointestinal tract. When S. boulardii is present, it inhibits toxins from binding to those receptor sites and steals the metabolites it needs to survive. For instance, it takes away the food from the pathogens because it acts like it's a pathogen, but it's not. And it takes all their food and then they die. And then it passes out of the body when S. boulardii leaves. So the main pathogens just are really not able to survive in the presence of this powerful, good yeast. And Kombucha is also antibiotic resistant. This yeast cannot be killed by antibiotics because it's a good yeast and not a probiotic. It's a good probiotic yeast. So it's resistant to antibiotics, and it makes it incredibly useful for maintaining a healthy gut when treating an illness with antibiotics because it's a completely different species. Kombucha also protects the stomach lining. It neutralizes toxins produced by harmful pathogens and sends out a signal to the body to reduce inflammation that can lead to a number of negative health outcomes. The probiotic in kombucha, which is Espellardia, also acts as a decoy, like I said before, to harmful pathogens. It attracts those pathogens to it and keeps them from attaching to the intestinal wall and doing their damage. And one of the things I love about kombucha is it helps reduce joint pain. It contains acetic acid, which not only helps stabilize blood sugar, but also contains a pain reliever, analgesic and anti-arthritic compounds, which help remove toxins that may have accumulated in the joints, causing pain and inflammation. And I noticed that firsthand. That was one of the first things I noticed. The other compounds in kombucha include mucosal sulfolate, heparin, and hyaluronic acid. These help provide lubrication and protection to existing joint tissues. And that is these are very important components for the body. And kombucha assists your liver in detoxification. It's full of glucoric acid, which plays a huge role in one of the body's most important detoxification processes. This process, which glucoric acid binds to toxins and transforms so they can be easily eliminated by the kidneys. The liver produces this substance naturally, but sometimes the body can't keep up with the number of pollutants which we come in contact with. And we get a lot of pollutants, and not just through our diet, but through our skin and air. And this extra glucoric acid in kombucha really helps make up the difference. And you'll feel the difference too. It's pretty powerful. Kombucha also helps your kidneys. It may relieve kidney, eliminate environmental pollutants. And every day, your kidneys process about 200 quarts of blood to remove and eliminate chemicals and toxins. And calcium buildups in blood tissues can cause calcification throughout the body, which can also cause calcification in the kidneys, aka kidney stones. So kombucha has been used to prevent the kidneys from forming kidney stones by helping to purify and remove the toxins. Now, kombucha also alleviates constipation and diarrhea, and I have really seen this. The probiotic in kombucha, which is Espellardia, is actually used to treat all sorts of bowel disorders, including Clostridium, acute diarrhea, that's antibiotic-associated diarrhea, some parasitic forms of diarrhea, and other gastrointestinal disorders. It has a record of helping reduce the symptoms of irritable bowel disease and kombucha's preventative effects on heart, weight, cholesterol, and blood glucose. There's a new study on kombucha that was published in the Journal of Food and Science, and the research was carried out to understand the preventative effects of kombucha on all of the heart, weight, blood glucose, total protein, lipid proteins, and cardiac markers in rats with heart damage. And they found that kombucha tea significantly decreased cholesterol, triglycerides, while increasing the levels of HDL. And similarly, a decrease in leakage of the cardiac markers from the myocardium was also observed. And when I posted this on my Facebook page many years ago, several people commented that their cholesterol level had gone down, and quite significantly when they started drinking kombucha. And I actually have a few friends who told me that recently too. And it's just a fabulous drink, guys. Just love it. We have it all the time. So grocery stores and health food stores sell many different brands of kombucha if you don't want to make it. There are some good brands, but the one I do recommend is GT Synergy Kombucha. And now, I'm not getting anything for saying this. I just love it, and I've loved it for years. But they are like one of the only kombucha companies that doesn't lightly pasteurize their kombucha, because sometimes they can, overflow on store shelves, so people lightly pasteurize them, which you're not going to get as many benefits. But GT has never done that and says he will never do that. So it's a really good brand to recommend. It's probably one of the biggest brands out there, but it's probably my favorite. That's the first one I ever tried was GT's. And I love his mom's story His story about his mom, the reason he was like a 19-year-old kid. His mom got a very rare form of breast cancer, and she was working sales and I think at like a makeup counter at one of the stores. And she was serving a lot of her clients kombucha in these little glasses. And she had been making and drinking kombucha for years. And when they went in to assess the breast cancer, it had gone dormant and they didn't know why. And it was a very aggressive form of cancer. And you can read this on his website. It's really interesting. But he credits kombucha with saving his mom's life. So he started selling it. And just himself. I mean, I think I read on there that he used a little red wagon to take it to customers. And wow, what a difference he's made. And it was strictly word of mouth. But I love his story. I love his mom's story. And they're just one of the best makers of kombucha. And I, again, don't get anything for saying this. I just love it. I love these kinds of stories. And I love how much it helped me in the beginning when I hadn't started making my own. So, and I still get GTs when I'm out and about and want a kombucha. So I love it. So that's a good one to get, guys. And they have a lot of different flavors. So now, generally speaking, most commercial kombuchas are not as strong as homemade. But again, I think GT's is great. I think it might be just as good, but I'm not for sure. I'd have to test it, but I think it's a pretty good version of homemade. It's pretty close to homemade. Let me just say that. So when you make your own, you just need some tea, sugar, and a starter culture, and that's it. And a big pot, and if your home is cold, maybe a little bit of a brew belt or something to keep your tea warm. But if your home is in the 70s, it should be fine. So it's cheaper to make on your own. You'll have an endless supply of kombucha starters. I have my own starter you can buy, and you could get one from a friend too. It's so fun to make. I could show you how. I've got all kinds of help, FAQs, pictures. I encourage you to just discover the power that fermented foods can bring to your life. And kombucha has had such a tremendous influence on my life and my family's life, and so many friends and thousands of people now that I have helped. And when something impacts you, you want to share it. I can literally drink a bottle of kombucha and feel it lift my sense of well-being. I can feel it. I can feel a big difference if I'm low or tired. And just one bottle, it just right away, it gives me that lift I'm looking for. So, but again, test it on yourself, see how you do. Your body is just this magnificent machine. It takes everything you eat and drink and tries to assimilate it the best way that it can. So discover the things that work best for you, watch your body shine. And I've got really super easy instructions on how to make kombucha, and I highly recommend it. It's made a big difference in my life. So those are some of the benefits and the reasons that I make and drink kombucha and the difference that it has made in my life. I really, really love it. So check it out. And listen, guys, we will talk to you next time. And I hope you will give it a try. Even if you just go buy a bottle, see if you like it. Get the fruit flavored kind you like if you want to try a different flavor, and see what difference it makes. So have a good one. We'll see you next time.